All right, English 8, I want to post some of the notes for your psychoanalytical criticism. This is from my last class at semester where I taught this, but I'm going to upload these for you guys on Insta as well. Basically, what you're doing with this lens is you're looking at the way the brain works and the way the influences that cause the brain to work the way that it does. And there's two ways you can do this. You can think about how the characters have different issues and how their psychology plays out in the text. So an example of that would be maybe talking about the Edgar Allan Poe story and how this dude is very, very emotionally triggered by his friend talking bad about him. Or you can talk about the psychology of the author and talk about, hey, this seems to match up with the author's life. For example, maybe you talk about Edgar Allan Poe and how he had these attachment disorders with his parents and how that ended up making him write the way that he did. I'll let you guys kind of look through this, but Freud is sort of who we think of as the father of psychology. Freud talks a lot about the Oedipus complex and sort of why we do the things that we do. And that's one thing I want you guys to consider is why are the characters acting this way? What's happening in their brain that's making them act this way? Like I said, I'll let you guys read through this, and this will give you some resources for if you're having trouble with this lens. You can talk about psychological approaches with tragedy and sort of the morality of different psychological pieces. There's some quotes from Freud that I will put up for you. Id, ego, and superego are a common piece that you will see with a lot of psychological analysis, where basically you're saying this is sort of people's little devil on their shoulder, or this is people's inner secret desires that are coming out, and we see that happening because they do this one weird thing. So the id is your kind of instinctive impulses, and they're kind of your unconscious. The ego is you understanding yourself. So kind of I'm doing this because I want to present myself in a certain way. And then the superego is your internalized social understanding. So here's what society and my parents have taught me early in life, and that's why I sort of act the way that I do. So hopefully that's helpful as you're thinking about analyzing some of your characters. Here's more in depth. I'll let you guys read that. Methods of dealing with conflict that come from psychology. We talk a lot about repression. So I'm doing this, but I'm sort of repressing the reasons why. Isolation. I don't feel connected. I have traumatic events. Denial, projection. Projection means that you are thinking that other people are doing something, but it's basically just because of your internal conflict that you're putting onto them. But you can look through some of those and see if any of those will fit with your analysis. Your parental relationships. That's a huge one when it comes to this is why people act the way that they do. Because they have this relationship with their parents that has maybe been traumatic, or it's forced them to become the parent, or they've really, really admired their parent and they want to mirror their parent's behavior, or possibly they're desperately seeking parental approval. These are the sort of things that may come up when you're analyzing a character, is talking about what it is in their parental relationship. So think about Nathaniel Hawthorne and his rejection of his father's religion is a huge piece of why he's writing Young Goodman Brown. Here's our second piece. Other theories that you can use Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which you guys have probably heard about this, but this is kind of the idea that you need to have your basic needs met. So basic needs are at the bottom there. You've got food, sleep. Then afterwards, you need your safety needs met. Like you feel like you have money and you feel like you have a place to stay and you have a family and you have your health. Moving up, once you have all of those things, then you can start focusing on friendship and family and like building a relationship with someone. Past there, you can start thinking about self-confidence. And then self-actualization is, I have time to like reflect on myself and go to therapy, etc. So if you are analyzing a text, you could say, these people in this text are in the middle of a war and they don't have their basic needs met or their safety met. So how could they possibly be acting from this self-aware, amazing place? You can talk about Erikson's stages of development. This is childhood development. So this chart that I put on Instagram for you is going to give you kind of the ages that people are when they get to certain things. And one thing that's important about this is if you have a trauma event at a certain age, often it will lock you in mentally to that age, at least in some aspects. So say you lost a parent at a certain age, that when you feel emotionally triggered based on that traumatic event, you will see yourself acting out as if you're that age of that development stage. So if you see that in a character, you could talk about that. Again, the methods of dealing with conflict, your psychological criticism. So here's what we say to look for. Look for places where you see the character or the author feeling repression or isolation or projection or a reaction. Like if you feel like your character is getting weirdly triggered, this is going to be a great place to use this analysis. If you see their internal conflicts, if they seem like they can't be happy or they can't fit into society, if you see that they're talking about dreams, or they're doing kind of creative pieces that show their mindset. If you see any descriptions of the unconscious in the text, if you see how they're interacting with their parents in a text, that's a good one. Repeated behavior, or you start to see the identity developing of a character, that's going to be a great place to use the psychological criticism to look for. One of the big things about a psychoanalytical critique is you definitely don't want to read too much into something that's not there. So people will talk about like, I think that the reason the character is doing this is because of this, and they'll have really no factual basis, which means that you're kind of just maybe projecting on to the character or the author. Think about that as you're starting to do this psychoanalytical piece. I'm going to post a video next that just explains exactly what you're doing for the psychological essay, but I wanted you to at least have these notes where I talked you through them, and you can obviously reach out to me with any questions, or you can do further research based on some of the ideas presented in the notes, but I wanted to at least explain them to you before I just posted them for you guys.